We are recording, Aiden, and we are going to be looking at JD Vance. So, yeah, I listened to this earlier today. Aiden listened to this earlier today, and we agree that JD Vance is lying through his teeth based off of what we know so far about the Epstein files. And I am, for one, ready to start debunking everything he said. So, here we go. This could be the biggest episode we've done yet in terms of, like, importance. So anyways, here we go. I am at around the, blackmailed. It's like being blackmailed to me. I thought he started talking about Epstein around the hour 38.
I think they really started getting into it. I want to say an hour 14 because
that doesn't seem right.
My first not red flag, no, but it was something that I found.
This is how my employees
but yes, at the same time,
they're talking about the Strait of Hormuz at hour 14.
Try to figure out the problem. What is their proposal? The people who think.
Yeah, this is about the Strait of Hormuz. I don't want to do the Strait of Hormuz. So let's just start off though by explaining, because this is a nearly 3-hour long podcast. But let's explain to the audience what's going on here. So when they open up, they start talking about WWE. Which, okay, fair enough, Joe Rogan is...
UFC.
I thought it was... Okay, UFC. Aiden would know more about this stuff than me. What do I know? I'm just a girl, you know? Anyways, so UFC, they start talking about... they open up both UFC fighting, how they just had a fight at the White House. The White House hosted. And I thought that was very interesting, that we are slowly becoming more like Idiocracy in that regard. And then they go on to talk about the Strait of Hormuz and international policies and stuff like that. So beyond that, it's like, for me, what I noticed about this whole interview was they open up with something that's kind of mundane in terms of like how it impacts us, but it's like not mundane in terms of what people like to listen to. So they open up with something that people find intriguing, which is, sport fighting. And then...
And it kind of makes sense, because they were both at the event. Joe Rogan, I think he did, what would it be, commentary for both, because he's a UFC commentator. I don't know if he... I know that he was there. JD Vance, of course, he was there because the event was for Donald Trump's birthday.
It was okay. I did not realize that. I was not paying attention to that. They would have talked about the birthday.
Yeah, they did.
I thought they mentioned that it was Trump's birthday in here. I didn't. Maybe I just didn't catch that while I was listening, because I was just like, oh, okay, they're having UFC fighting over at the White House, more like Idiocracy. I still think with the birthday thing, it's kind of like, you had Marilyn Monroe sing Happy Birthday to JFK, and you already are seeing, this mixing of pop culture and the presidency. So here we are, 60 years later, and we now have UFC fighting, full-on events at the White House. And I can't help but think that we are slowly becoming more like Idiocracy with, these fighting spectacles, these, gladiator, modern-day gladiator stuff. I guess we're following, the idea of Rome is, keep the masses entertained with fighting, and you will be able to control them any way you like. But the point I was trying to get to is, they start off the interview with something interesting, but relatively unimportant to politics, aside from the fact that it was at the White House. They go on to some actual important stuff, the Strait of Hormuz and the war in Iran, and, whether or not we can make peace with them, and whether or not we will have nuclear war, which, oh my goodness, I don't want to think about that. But it's the idea of, Iran getting a nuke, and he's like, well, Iran, it's more like the way he was explaining it. I know you mentioned the fact that he talked about how you can basically go on the YouTube and figure out how to make a nuclear bomb. It's not that hard anymore because that information's just out there. I remember in high school there was a guy who knew how to make nukes. But point is, opens up, then we get to the actual Epstein files.
Side note, I thought that you couldn't find how to make an atom bomb on YouTube anymore since, I want to say it was kind of like in the early years of YouTube, there was a guy who actually did make an atom bomb for YouTube's sake. He was immediately dogpiled by the FBI.
He made a nuclear reactor. There's been a few of those.
Nuclear reactor.
If I remember correctly, there were a few of those guys. They'd be like Boy Scouts who would make nuclear reactors. And the problem...
still got dogpiled by the FBI, and YouTube changed their policies on you cannot show people how to make bombs or weapons.
Well, I know a guy who... Well, I did know a guy who knew how to make like nuclear weapons or whatnot. He knew the basics, and it's, like I was explaining earlier to you, it's more about getting your hands on the right resources than anything else nowadays. But with that said, point being, this Epstein stuff is right in the middle of the whole interview of JD Vance, and then they close out with other stuff. I think they are deliberately trying to like sandwich it in there because it's something that, you know, the public wants them to talk about. This whole thing seems not scripted but thought out. Like they knew what they were going to talk about beforehand, and they knew how they were going to start, how they were going to quickly sandwich Epstein into the middle, and then they knew that they were going to end with like the alien stuff. They wanted to make sure that they kept that Epstein stuff brief and kept this entertaining. So anyways, I think I found the spot. Let's get into it because we've been just talking about this whole interview, and it's been absolutely infuriating. Like I've never been more infuriated by a Joe Rogan episode of my life. So let's get started. I got this. My volume is all the way up. Let's go.
Good judgment. I mean, I certainly think that there are a lot of talking points and there are a lot of arguments that make their way into American political discourse. I think there are a lot of social media campaigns that definitely influence Americans and affect Americans. Do I think that it's been dispositive on any particular issue? Like, I think that's a much more difficult question.
Do you think that we would have started this war in Iran without the influence of Israel?
I think the president, completely separate from any influence from Israel, believes very strongly, and again, I agree with this, that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon.
Right,
but
after we
do things,
bombed them in June, right, that was the initial attack, right?
June of last year.
Yeah.
Midnight Hammer, yeah.
Right. Do you think he would have continued with the most recent campaign?
I'm going to speed up a couple minutes because I know that he's going to talk about Epstein any second now.
Look, I think...
But I think I went a little bit too far back.
Blackmailed is crazy to me.
Oh, no, okay, I went just a few seconds earlier.
I think it is. They talk about Trump being blackmailed, and then
yes!
Joe Rogan presses him on that.
I think that's it. I think that's how it gets started. Here we go.
Up close again. Whether you agree or disagree with our negotiation, or whether you agree
or disagree
with the decision to launch the campaign Epic Fury to begin with, the idea that Donald Trump is being, like, blackmailed is crazy to me. Because, again, I see the way that he makes decisions. I see the way that he processes this stuff. Like, the idea that he picks up the phone with anybody and says, hey, like, I'm going to take orders from you. No. That's just not how Donald Trump operates.
Can you understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files...
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. He starts off with, what do you mean? As soon as the Epstein files are brought up, he's immediately trying to deflect. Did you notice that when you were listening?
Uh-huh.
The first thing he does is he's like, what do you mean? He's not trying to address it. Like, he's immediately afterwards. And what's interesting is Trump, on his first campaign, admitted that the reason why he knew that the system was corrupt is because he would call the politicians and they would answer. And then he would tell them what to do. Like, he admitted this. in his first 2016 presidential campaign. So let's continue watching this. But we know for a fact that there's dirty politics going on.
Were supposed to be released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
I see. You're basically saying like the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail like the administration into doing the Iran thing,
or at the very least, the people that.
So I'm thinking that what's going on is JD Vance asks him, "What do you mean?" in order to see if he can get Joe Rogan to go off on a tangent that he can like latch onto, and then he's like, "Oh, you're saying that these Epstein files are going to that got Trump to get blackmailed into the Iran war," and now Joe's being a little bit more specific.
Were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out, had undue influence.
Well, again, like, say this with all candor, like, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. Like, we just did. But...
Okay. Have you ever heard the saying of, like, when you admit to something, or, like, when you make a statement, it's when you make a statement and it's immediately followed by a but, everything before that statement is basically null. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, at one point or another.
Yeah, here he is. That's exactly what he's doing now, is he's like, yeah, we messed up the comms, but, what but? Okay? And so now we're going to get into the part that absolutely infuriates me. And he's going to try and deflect and say stuff, and then we're going to go back to the Epstein files, and we're going to start debunking a lot of this stuff. Because
honestly, I'm kind of surprised that he didn't pivot back. Actually, he did a little bit, but not to the extent of, what was that? I want to say it was either earlier this year or kind of at the end of last year, but didn't Trump try and claim that he was an FBI informant?
You mean Epstein? He said something along those...
No, it was Trump. Trump claimed that he was an FBI informant on Epstein.
Trump said that he himself was an FBI informant. Yeah. I'm thinking about whether or not I want to look that. Let's look it up. Why not? We need content. Why not? All right. Actually, Trump says he was an FBI informant on Epstein. Okay, apparently it's Mike Johnson making this claim. Okay, let's listen.
There were tears in the room. There was outrage. It was both, I would describe it as heartbreaking and infuriating that justice has been delayed so long. Some of the women in the room...
I think they will, but I mean, the whole effort has been mooted. It's not necessary anymore. We make this very clear. We've made several times the last couple of days. The Oversight Committee's effort goes further than the discharge.
It's a compilation, and now the audio cut out.
It's been misrepresented. He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this.
Okay, yeah, that's what Mike Johnson is claiming, is that Trump was an FBI informant. Which he did, based off of everything I've read. It is true that he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, but I'm wondering if that's more of like, hey, you can do your dirty stuff, just not with my people sort of deal. Because Trump is like, I don't know, it's kind of like, both the lions go hunting, but if you hunt in the other lion's territory, you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, or, what is it? I guess so. Either that or I don't know what's the timeline, but it could have been in a pivotal point in time where Trump was trying to stay face, so he called out Epstein, but it wasn't.
I think it was in 2008 that Epstein was initially registered as a sex offender, and then on top of that, I think it was in Mar-a-Lago. It was in 2011 he got kicked out. Now, I'm not going to bother to look that up now because we have a lot of stuff that we're going to have to go over just with the Joe Rogan stuff alone. But I think...
Vance, I do recall kind of at the end of the Epstein file conversation, DJ Vance did bring up that Trump got him, or ratted out on him for Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, maybe we'll look into it then, but right now I want to just focus on one thing at a time, because we are going down that rabbit hole, and I'm not even going to say, we're not going to scream right now, but...
The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who suffered this unspeakable harm. It's detestable to him.
Yeah, I think they got multiple angles of him saying that, too. Because I think this is the same... same day where he's saying that he was Trump was FBI informant, just a different angle that someone else took. Anyways, now we've seen that from Mike Johnson. Back to Joe Rogan.
Do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said, the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were
100%
right
in front, but those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So here's let me try to
purpose of that performative display of the Epstein files, and she was saying there's
good question.
Of hours
good
of
question.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think is happening, look, I know Pam, I like Pam, I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that
I don't think she overstated anything at all. I forget, what all the rules are around, fair trade and whatnot, but I know that if you do commentary on this, you just can't go too long without saying anything. So that's why I'm probably going to keep stopping and have just commentary thrown in, because I don't want to speak over them. This is our first time really doing something like this. But anyways, I don't think she overstated anything, because he's going to say that there's 6 million files here in a second. There's only been 3.5 released. Why the heck have the other 2.5 not been released is what I want to know. So I'm going to continue.
She, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including
as she deserved.
Talks about this a lot. I'm one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole.
Okay, this is what made me angry. Because I know he hasn't gone down every single rabbit hole. Did he go down the rabbit hole that they purposely killed Michael Jackson so that Tommy Mottola could have more access to the Sony, to the music that he had, the music deal he had with Sony, and so that the guy who bought up Neverland Ranch could get a deal on it? Did he go down the rabbit hole that these children are being trafficked to be cannibalized? Did he go down the rabbit hole of the Pizzagate? Did he go down the rabbit hole of all food is for prostitution and trafficking? Did he go down the rabbit hole of all of these different people like Cappy and Avicii being killed because they were the ones trying to be whistleblowers? Did he go down the rabbit hole that Princess Diana's death is mentioned there or something like that? Did he go down the rabbit hole of the one that I discovered, I think I just created a rabbit hole yesterday with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia potentially being put in place by Epstein? And did he go down the rabbit hole of Joy Ito? Did he go down the rabbit hole of the Clintons, being such best buds of Jeffrey Epstein that they were frequenting the island and doing stuff with him there? There's so many pictures and so much evidence that they were best buds with Epstein and doing stuff with them all the time, with him all the time. Did he go down the rabbit hole that it was Prince Andrew's daughters that were prostituted out? What other ones can you think of that I did not mention?
Let's see. There was a ton of rabbit holes. You mentioned all the ones that, well, I don't know, was Snow White a rabbit hole?
I forgot to mention the Snow White rabbit hole. Any other ones?
Let's see.
The Disney characters all around.
I definitely think that they touched up on it briefly, but they didn't go into detail. But Epstein does have a lot of ties to intelligence agency.
The intelligence agency. I don't think JD Vance has been going down any of these rabbit holes. The cloning. I don't think he did. I don't think
the Neanderthals.
The Neanderthal rabbit hole. I'm positive. So I'm positive that I did more research on this. I've gone through more files than JD Vance, but we'll get to that in a minute because he's going to. I'm going to have him make a statement, and then I'm going to counteract it. What?
Like how DJ Vance.
JD.
How he brings up that he's been, going through a conspiracy theory rabbit hole is almost like, say you're watching a TV show and you're on the 4th season, and all of a sudden one of the characters, your favorite character, just randomly out of the blue is like, oh, and I've always been into crocheting for whatever reason.
I know, martial arts out of nowhere. This is very convenient right now.
This is news to us.
Yeah, this is a very convenient, piece of fact now that we know that the nude gangsters need to be taken over and clothed. You need to defeat the gangsters and clothe them. Good to know that despite the fact that we needed knitted hats earlier, that you know how to crochet now, and it turns out out of nowhere when we could have used a kung fu master like 5 seconds ago, you actually know how to do karate now. And so
this character development of DJ Vance being a conspiracy theorist it doesn't make sense.
You keep saying it backwards. It's not DJ, it's JD.
JD Vance, excuse me.
It's okay. We got bigger problems at hand.
We could go down most of them today. Look, the original sin of the Epstein investigation, and obviously I'm biased here, but it was not what Donald Trump and the administration did in 2025. It was, you have to go back to 2007, 2008.
I would argue you have to go back even further when people, I think as early as the 90s, there were people trying to out Epstein. I think it was as early as the 90s. I think they were trying to say stuff. So I think the original sin was that there was nothing being done as soon as people started hearing the word out. Like, I know for a fact that there were people years before he got convicted as a sex offender trying to blow the whistle on him, but ultimately they didn't get taken seriously.
Original Alex Acosta investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, where he basically dropped the federal charges. I think Epstein ended up getting prosecuted on some sort of local thing, but the original warrant, back in 2008, what was he looking for? What was he allowed to look for? What were they collecting? It was not looking at a broader conspiracy. So that happens, okay? Epstein gets pinched. I think he goes to prison, or maybe this is when he was on house arrest.
Yeah, house arrest basically.
Like
he was allowed out for half of the day. So he was allowed to go out in order to work. So he only goes back to the prison to sleep. Make that make sense.
From the 80s and 90s up to 2006, 2007, anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared. Right? So
that's not entirely true. There's plenty of files in there, I believe, that go back to like the early 2000s and the 90s. I don't think we got anything as early as the 80s, but I want to say that there are a handful of... I know that there were a handful of files that we saw in the early 2000s, And I think there was a few that were from the 90s. Definitely reports from the 90s. There were definitely, like, reports. But I don't know if it's, like, a copy of a report or if it was something else. But I don't know if they're the original documents that we read, per se. But I do know that we were hearing about, like, we've read through stuff that we're talking about incidences that were going on in the 90s.
When people say, has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people or that Epstein never engaged in broader sex trafficking? No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files...
Okay, that's BS. That's a lie. This guy is lying right now through his teeth. So here's how I know it's a lie. First off, we've been going through them ourselves. Second off, in order for him to say that he's looked through most of the files... First off, does he mean the 6 million original files? Does he mean the 3.5 that were released? Is he talking about all the copies and all the redacted stuff? Or is he talking about the redacted stuff? He's not being specific. That's the first thing that frustrates me. But even though we've been dedicating, hours of our lives to go through a handful of them every week, and then, or every week or every other week, now, here he is saying he's been through most of them, and he's the vice president. He gets paid to do stuff for the people. And in the meantime, I'm going to do some math. And I'm going to pull up a calculator here. So, there's 3.5 million files, okay? 35000. So, that's 35,000, 350,000. 3.5 million. Anyways, here we go. So in order for him to get through the majority of 3.5 million, let's say a majority is anything above, half. So we're just going to split this in half, and I know what it is. It's, 1.75. But, so let's say that he's gone through at least 1.75 million of these documents, and let's assume that there are about, I'm going to say a good chunk of them are duplicates. So let's say that 75% are duplicates. Okay, so we're going to divide that even further by 4. All right, now we're down to 400. And 437,500 documents approximately. However, here's the problem. A lot of these documents are many pages long. Some of them are over 1,000 pages long. There was that one document we went into where it's like the vast majority, it was like 700 plus pages were redacted. But he would have access, as he says later, he has access to pretty much everything, is what he claims. Let's assume he has access to the unredacted version. And this means that he has access to thousands and thousands of pages of the files, unredacted. So let's say the average file is about, 10 pages. Okay? Now we're back up to, now we're at 4.375 million. Let's go into, Jimmy Carter, I heard, he claimed that he read a novel a day. Okay? I've heard this before. I don't know if it's true or not, but let's say you can do a novel a day, and your average novel is 200 pages long. Okay? It would take him 21,875 days if he is reading the equivalent of a novel of documents a day. You do that to 21,875, assuming he's reading the equivalent of a novel a day of the files. He's just doing nothing but reading. It's going to take this dude, not accounting for leap days, by the way, it's going to take this dude nearly 60 years to get through half of the files at the rate that he would be going. Based off of my rough math that I just provided, based off of what I've been reading in the files, assuming that the average file is about 10 pages long, assuming he has access to all the unredacted files, as he basically states later on in the interview, it would take him about 60 years to get through the majority of the files. There is no freaking way, even if you're excluding all the duplicates, that he has gone through the majority of the files. This guy is a lying... Okay, I'm trying not to swear anymore. I'm trying to be a good person. What would be... He's a lying a-hole. That's what he is. He's a lying a-hole. I've got to at least say that. But this guy's lying through his teeth to the American public on the Joe Rogan podcast, which is constantly, like, you know, one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Sometimes it's the biggest. And this is absolutely frustrating to me that it's so obvious that he is lying. It's so glaringly obvious. You cannot go through 3.5 million documents and say that you've seen the majority of them. Maybe he meant something else. I don't care. He needs to be more eloquent if he's going to talk about something so touchy and so important to the public. He can't be saying just anything. He has to be very specific in what he says in regards to what is the truth, which of course he's not going to be telling the truth. He's gonna say more stuff that I'm going to be able to prove are flat out lies here in a second. But he's just driving. This is where I got really angry in the interview, because we've been going through the files, and I can tell you there is no way this guy's seen the majority of the files, if that is actually what he meant to say. Right here, and I've looked at most of the files. No, you have not. If that's what you mean, if that is what you literally mean, there is no freaking way you've looked at most of the files. No way. Unless you're talking about, like, you know, you did like a composite picture where they make a picture of Donald Trump because you got 3.5 million files to choose from to, like, you know, line up and make a picture of Donald Trump and it looks just perfect. No, there's no way. Okay, that was my rant. You have a rant? I'm going to play it if you don't have a rant.
Continue on.
Is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007. Now, like, again, in our defense, yes.
Why did it get destroyed? How did it get destroyed? Who destroyed it? Give me more details, because I don't know this information.
Was there some, you know, bitching and moaning? Was there some back and forth? Yes. But we eventually collected 6 million documents.
There you go. There he goes. He's admitting 6 million documents. I was given the benefit of the doubt that he was only referring to the 3.5 that they released. If it's 6 million documents, that means we're talking about no longer 60 years to read through the amount of documents he claims, but rather more like, you know, 100 years. Here we go.
As part of the effort, the president, people say the president was forced into releasing the documents. Like, again, the idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke.
No, that's BS. No, he let's pull it up. Let's pull it up. Trump speaks out on the Epstein files. I think this is it. I think this is the one I'm referring.
President Truth Social last night, you urged House Republicans to vote in favor of this Epstein release bill they're going to vote on tomorrow. I just want to be super clear on your position. Do you want to see it pass the Senate? Would you sign that bill?
That's fine.
I do want to say, here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this.
That's not entirely true. I think we found several Republicans in there that he was hanging out with. Now, it wasn't like any big-name Republicans like Bush. I think the biggest name Republican in there would have been Trump. And Trump was a relatively recent Republican. But I don't think I saw any major name Republicans in there so far. But I could be wrong. Maybe Dick Cheney's in there. But anyways, continue.
You look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton. They went to his island all the time. Many others are all Democrats. All I want is for people to recognize a great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower.
There he goes deflecting.
On energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming.
Completely deflecting.
We've done a great job. and I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So
You're deflecting.
I'm all for it. You know, we've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Unfortunately, like with the Kennedy situation,
Did he just say we've already given 50,000 pages?
Situation with the Martin Luther King situation.
Yeah, he did.
Not to put Jeffrey Epstein in the same category, but no matter what we give, it's never enough. You know, with Kennedy, we gave everything, and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything, and it's never enough. We've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages. 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans.
50,000 pages versus 3.5 million documents, which on average are probably around 5 pages long.
Now, I believe that many of the people some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally blamed for the shutdown. You know, they cost our country hundreds of billions of dollars with that, at a lot of inconvenience. So I'm for any. I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much, because honestly, I don't want to take.
But don't talk about it too much. Don't talk about the fact that maybe our entire system is based on a bunch of people who deliberately traffic little girls and occasionally little boys. And I say that specifically because I think for like every 10 women, I've only seen one guy. And like, there's been questions like, we know that Jeffrey Epstein liked girls. He didn't like guys, but apparently occasionally a guy would get trafficked. But I've only heard really about the girls. It's not like I'm not trying to diminish male victims.
Another rabbit hole, Palm Beach Pete.
Yeah. I just
was in the files, even though he was gay, and that's kind of
his alter ego, maybe. I don't know. But
I also believe it at this point. What was it? Did he dodge the DNA test, and what they found got Florida officials raising their eyebrows?
I'll have to check that one out later. We'll have to do another Palm. We already did one Palm Beach Pete episode. We might have to do another one.
Get away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them, and it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here.
Where's the one where he's like, stop talking about it? Where's the one where he's... I'm surprised it's actually not popping up. Because this is a big deal back when it happened. Is this it? Maybe it's 8 minutes long. I don't know if I want to do the... Is this the one? I think this is the one. If I can't find, if this isn't the one I'm thinking of, I'm gonna stop because I want to get back to it.
A few months ago, you had in your office here Peter Mandelson, the British ambassador. You were shaking hands with him over a trade deal. He's today being forced to resign from the House of Lords, the upper house of the British Parliament, over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Just wondered if you had any reaction to that, since obviously you...
I didn't know about it, but I really don't know too much about it. I know who he is. It's too bad. You know, speaking of Epstein, I will say this. A reporter named Wolf and Epstein conspired. This just came out yesterday. In the millions of pages of documents, how crazy this is. Conspired against me in order to fight like hell to make sure I lose the election. That's the only thing that was mentioned about me.
Incorrect. We'll get to that later, though.
Now, about Democrats, some really bad stuff. But about me, that Wolf, whoever Wolf is, he wrote a book, a couple of books, and Epstein conspired against me. Did you know that, Mr. Senator? I did know that. They conspired against me so I lose the election, or worse. So that takes care of Epstein as far as Trump is concerned. But you got a lot of Democrats out there that are very much involved with Epstein. But I'll be honest with you, you got to get back to running the country too. Millions and millions every week. You know, when Epstein was alive, nobody cared about him. When he's dead, they care about him.
Because
but it's really a
files are
Democrat
released.
problem. It's not a Republican, it's a Democrat problem. The only problem Republicans have is that we have to get back to number one, running our country, and then number two, very importantly, letting the public know what a great job we're doing. We have the greatest economy in the history of the world. We have $18 trillion being spent. The record was $3 trillion many years ago, not by us, by another country. I won't say the country. Yeah, please.
That does not sound like a one.
Have you been briefed on Savannah Guthrie's mom missing in Arizona?
I think it's terrible.
Will you see more federal agents like helping out on the
Sure, I'm going to call her later on. I think it's a terrible thing. I always get along very good with Savannah. Very unusual situation, but we're going to find out. Yeah, what do you want?
On the Epstein files, you talked about Democrats who were in there. Elon Musk was also in there, and so was your Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and correspondence.
Ooh, I didn't look at Howard Lutnick
yet.
yet.
Did you read those new files that were published by the Department of Justice?
I have a lot of things I'm doing. A lot of things I'm doing. I don't know. You mentioned two names. I'm sure they're fine. Otherwise, it would have been major headlines.
Elon was talking to Epstein.
Or survivors of Epstein's are unhappy with those redactions that came out. Some of them, entire witness interviews are totally blacked out. Do you think that they should be more
with the fact that
transparent?
they thought they released too much. I heard that, and you tell me something else. No. I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else.
There you go. Get on. It's time for the country to get on to something else. No, sir. We're not going to simply get past the fact that potentially thousands of children were trafficked over the course of literal decades to the elites of this country, including yourself, sir.
Nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me.
I'm going to wait until JD Vance gets to this point, but we're going to get into how there's plenty of stuff said about him in the Epstein files.
Literally, by Epstein and other people.
Okay, that's new
But
for me.
I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto
Always thought like
something
he was the
else.
new kid on the block.
You always thought what?
I always thought that Vance was the new kid on the block.
No. Oh, well, actually, I think Vance is... I was just referring to Trump. I do think Vance is actually in there. I think I've actually looked up his name before, and he did pop up, but he wasn't, like... Compared to Trump, it's nothing. But I do think his name is mentioned, but I don't think he had any direct contact with Epstein. Continuing.
What did you say to people
Like
who don't think about
healthcare,
justice, Mr. President?
something that people care about. Yeah, what did you say?
What would you say to the survivors?
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face. You know why? You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth, and you're a very dishonest.
And so are you. I want to see, could Trump have... I want to see if Trump could have prevented the releasing of the Epstein files. I don't think he could have. I actually don't think Trump had that option, like the same way that JD Vance is claiming. Okay, according to AI, this is based off of AI, and AI is sometimes, of course, incorrect. So that's why I like to show the screen so that people know that's coming from AI, because I have AI, as I was talking to my dad, it gives the response that it thinks you want a lot of the times. Anyways, it says here Donald Trump could have legally blocked or significantly delayed the release of the Epstein files according to legal experts and statements from administration officials. So I'm going to go down. Yeah, right now it's the first thing that pops up is about the Joe Rogan interview. What else can be done to force Trump's DOJ? How Trump could still keep Epstein files secret. This is from November 19th, 2025. Trump says we should move on from Epstein. I am not too sure if I can find. I wonder if there's someone in. I wonder if there's someone on YouTube who can explain it. I am not entirely sure if an executive order could have prevented it, because you got the three branches of government, and Congress historically was supposed to be more powerful than the presidency, but I don't know if that's changed to the point, because it changes pretty much every administration. But historically, Congress was supposed to have all the power, if I remember correctly. I could be getting my political science mixed up. But more or less, all three political branches, the Supreme Court, Congress, and then the presidency, were all supposed to hold, not equal amounts of power, but significant amounts of power. The presidency was actually supposed to be a smaller role in the past. But that has changed. Loophole in Epstein file could block full release of records. I'm only seeing stuff relevant to today about them releasing the current records. Could have initiated new probes. Okay, this is according to AI. To AI. Could have initiated a new probe, controlling the pace and redactions, administrative veto power, which would have been my guess. I was guessing that he could have had the power to veto it. I am not entirely sure that's true. I don't know if a veto would have actually prevented the release of the Epstein files. Though the administration ultimately allowed the legislation to pass while working to shape its execution. I don't know if a veto could have prevented that.
I think that depends on how biased the justices are towards Trump.
In the Supreme Court?
Yeah, or, whoever would be in charge of sending the to the general public.
So, I looked it up. This is still AI.
With justices that are biased towards Epstein.
Oh, that too. Who knows if they were hanging out with him too.
If there's one thing that I've learned from this whole entire situation is that our whole entire political system is just one big circle jerk behind the door. Yeah,
pretty much. So according to it, it said, no, a presidential veto could not have permanently prevented the release of the Epstein files, although legislation to compel the Department of Justice, DOJ, to release the records faced initial opposition. A veto could have been overridden by Congress. Furthermore, lawmakers had multiple workarounds and alternative pathways to make the information public. So my understanding is, I think that was. Well, I don't think Trump could have actually truly have prevented the Epstein files from being released. I think Vance is saying that because here's the thing: it's when you're talking about the powers that be, the greatest powers in the land. On paper, the law says they can't do X, but they can do Z. Doesn't mean that they won't do X and will do Z. You know what I'm saying? Just because it says that. Just because, on paper they're not supposed to do it doesn't mean that they won't. We see this a lot with, the supposed war crimes of different presidents. And I say supposed because I honestly don't know enough about the law to be able to say whether or not they were actual war crimes on the basis of what's considered a war crime. Everything, definitions get changed all the time. The law gets changed all the time. And then when you're at the top deciding what the law is, it's kind of like the king of Eswatini. He made a law saying you couldn't lose your virginity before the age of 18, but then he goes ahead and marries a 17-year-old. And it's well, doesn't really matter that he said that because, he's the guy who made the law. He can just change the law back to whatever it was before. I want to see what this actually says really quick. I'm not too sure how reliable this is. This is from, I guess this is AA.com. I'm not too sure what this is actually. I've never been on this particular website. But this is an article that I just pulled up. Andolus America. I've never been on this website before, but I was interested in the headline. U.S. Republican lawmaker Massie hopes to get veto-proof majority on Epstein file release. Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie says record of vote will last longer than Trump's presidency. U.S. Representative Tom Massie said Sunday he hopes to secure a veto-proof majority when the House votes on releasing Jeffrey Epstein files. So he was hoping that they would have enough votes to make sure that even if Trump did veto it, they could still release it. And so Congress can override a presidential veto if 2/3 majority is satisfied in both chambers. That is what I remember learning in political science. I couldn't remember exactly what the percent. I did remember it was 2/3, but I didn't remember exactly if it referred to vetoes. I knew the president had the power to veto, but I couldn't remember if he had the power to veto 2/3 or not. I knew that 2/3 was important when it came to passing certain things. I think you need 2/3 to put an amendment in the Constitution. I think you have to have 2/3. Back to freaking JD Vance and talking about how he is lying and being manipulative, and I've never seen it so bold. I get that we're both young, but I've never seen it be so blatant, even when I go through, like, recordings of Obama and Bush. Like, the only other time would have been the Clintons when they were being interviewed about the Epstein files.
He could have killed it. What did he do? He actually said, no, we're going to release these files. He thought, I don't think this is how it went down. By the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, like, do I think there is I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence that the President of the United States engaged in wrongdoing with minors.
Pause again. Because I already got it up. 1,825 results of Donald Trump in the Epstein files. Now, which one should I open to take a look at? I'm pretty sure I've opened up the first 10 on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and go to number 4. Because I've been through a few of them already. Talks about filing for divorce. This one's about a sex party. Let's take a look. Let's see what Donald Trump is getting accused of in here. I'm going to zoom in so I can read a little bit better because my screen is not as good as I would hope. Okay. Redacted. Please note the information contained in this communication is confidential. Maybe a attorney-client. Okay, this is the disclaimer. This is to Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. It's from a guy called Bryce Gordon. And I'm looking for where Trump gets mentioned. Okay. So, this is in 2016. It looks like Trump is only mentioned in a link from the Daily Mail article. It's a Daily Mail link article. It's a link for the Daily Mail. It's for an article on Donald Trump. So, never mind that one. Is this the same one? Yeah, it is. So, Jeffrey, I've known Jeffrey, and it's a joke. Donald Trump introduced us. This is interesting. Okay, this one right here. Alright, this is to Jeffrey Epstein. Whoever sent this to him was redacted. Jeffrey-Neil. I gotta wonder who the Neil guy is. Okay, Neil Cassell, right there. Okay, I've known, neither of you requires introduction. I've known Jeffrey 28 years, and this isn't a joke. Donald Trump introduced us. I first met Neil 16 years ago when Bob Pyrie introduced us. Neil will be visiting New York City end of month. So anyways, Donald Trump introduced whoever this guy is to Jeffrey Epstein. So meaning that prior to that, this guy knew Jeffrey Epstein for 28 years. Meaning, at the time that this email was sent in 2018, before Epstein was killed, This guy had been friends with Epstein longer than that. 28 years. And then Donald Trump had been friends with Epstein even longer than that. So this guy was friends all the way back in 1990. And based off of this email, Donald Trump knew him at least as early as 1990. So that is something that should be considered. Now let's see. This one is accusations against Donald Trump. How many of you led lawsuit and allegations of rape against Donald Trump during the 2016 election? Okay, this is an article, most likely. I want to find the ones where it's like talking about other stuff. What sucks is the fact that I can't do that. I can't just simply put Donald Trump by himself in. A lot of these are just simply articles. I can't just I might be able to put in Donald Trump rapes, but that's not going to necessarily pop up the results that I'm hoping to. Tamiz Lehman, Jocelyn Shia. Donald Trump is also in town today, up in the Trump Tower in Istanbul. Fellow billionaires. Here we go. Here's one of the ones I was hoping for. They like to bury them. Yes, I am over 18. Leave me alone. Why must it be flipped? Now that billionaire child sex offender, now that billionaire child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein is back in the news, it seems like a good time to take a close look at the allegations that Donald Trump raped a 13-year-old at Epstein's Manhattan home in 1994. Trump is more than overdue for his hashtag #MeToo reckoning. So this is a screenshot from Twitter. And that is what this is all about. So I don't know why this particular one is in the Epstein files. But it means that somehow that information was on Epstein. So why would Epstein have that? Why would Epstein keep that piece of information somewhere, or why would it be sent to him? Never thought it was going to come out as a do I want to take a look at that? Ultimately refused to cooperate. Here's another one, right here. This one's interesting. Okay. This is to and from FBI, as mentioned, between redacted. So some sort of FBI connection. Alright, positive case hits. See attachment for details. Highlighted contains salacious information. First one mentioned, Donald Trump. One identified victim claimed abuse by Trump but ultimately refused to cooperate. Of course. So when was this filed? This was sent back in 2025. It would make sense that she would refuse to cooperate. He's president. Of course she's not going to cooperate. I actually think that there are multiple... I think that this is one of those things where I can probably type it in and get more... get a larger version of the file. Let's see. No, it's just the one. No, I didn't want that. But I want to say that I've seen that file earlier on in the results. But anyways, I actually am thinking that we've gone far enough in to take a look at it. It's just like he is in here though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's in here, not a little, but he's in there a lot. Let's see. Trump and 24 children. Let's take a look at this one. But that one was... So I think that last file, though, proves the point that I'm trying to make. That there is some sort of level of evidence that Donald Trump is guilty of something. Because we have one victim who's not willing to cooperate. Or one alleged victim who's not willing to cooperate. He's the first one listed. After that, Prince Andrew, Jess Staley, Leon Black, Glenn Dubin, and Harvey Weinstein. These are the people who are highlighted, and it says, highlighted contains salacious information. Considering what we know about Prince Andrew and Harvey Weinstein, what the heck was Trump doing? So we got one victim claimed abuse by Trump, but ultimately refused to cooperate. This was sent in 2025. This is FBI information. Like, that to me is enough evidence to suggest that Trump did something. Now, here we have another file. In the Circuit Court of the 15th Judicial Court for Palm Beach County, Florida, the plaintiff is Scott Rothstein individually, Bradley Edwards individually. Jeffrey Epstein is the plaintiff, actually. So I'm sorry, I read a little bit too fast. I'm getting ahead of myself. Jeffrey Epstein, plaintiff, versus Scott Rothstein individually, Bradley Edwards individually. And so this is dated Thursday, December 7th, 2017. Let's find Trump in here, because he's in here somewhere. The court, the next issue is, quote, have you ever socialized Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18? I take the same position as I have on the last two, where I would sustain them. Let me provide you with the reason, and I will give you the opportunity to argue. And that is the word socialize with anyone in the presence of females under the age of 18. Socialize has and can have a very benign connotation. People can socialize after church in a church hall with children and people anywhere from the age of infancy to 101, whether it's Donald Trump or anyone else. Mr. Scarcola. Andrew Dershowitz is the next question. The court. Conceivably, it would be the same response in Mr. Trump's. President Trump now stands the situation about the proprietor of Mar-a-Lago. There could be numerous occasions where Mr. Epstein may have been an invited guest, and Mr. Trump's own daughters, who may have been under the age of 18 at the time, were also invited guests. Socializing carries with it many different connections. Your position, Mr. Scarola, in which case there would be absolutely no basis to assert a Fifth Amendment privilege. Pleading the Fifth means you have the right to remain silent. So you have a right to remain silent. No one can try and coerce information out of you. Anyways, just to give you an idea. If Jeffrey Epstein were socializing at a church hall with Donald Trump and children, if he was socializing at Mar-a-Lago with Trump and children, there could be to valid assertion of a Fifth Amendment privilege. It is only if there is a link between that answer and the commission of a crime that the assertion of the Fifth Amendment privilege is valid. So, by asserting the Fifth Amendment privilege and not saying, yes, I have, or no, I never have, by asserting the Fifth Amendment privilege, that Jeffrey Epstein is saying it is, I have socialized in the presence of Donald Trump and children under such circumstances as would provide a link in the chain of establishing my guilt in the commission of a crime. And these are the specific people who Jeffrey Epstein claims were inappropriately included in discovery requests. They have been referenced in his complaint. So the starting point is, did you ever socialize with Donald Trump in the presence of children? When did that occur? Where did it occur? Who were the children? Were any of those children the alleged victims in these crimes? But we get cut off in asking any of those questions when a Fifth Amendment privilege is asserted to the predicate questions. So that's my response to the concern that Your Honor has expressed. These are specifically referenced in the complaint. And again, if there is to be no reference to those allegations in the complaint as supporting a basis for probable cause as to the claims brought against Bradley Edwards, then and only then do these questions become irrelevant. I cannot, bro, this is why I can't be a lawyer. This is driving me nuts. If there is any reference to it, and there has to be because the complaint is going to come into evidence, it is the foundation of the malicious prosecution claim. As soon as that's in, that's the assertion that has already been made. We don't have to wait for it to be made when Jeffrey Epstein takes the witness stand. he has said it in his complaint. The court said what? Mr. Scarola. He has said that it was seeking discovery from Donald Trump and Tommy Mottola. Bro, I'm getting... Tommy Mottola gets more sus every freaking time. I'm positive that this guy, Tommy Mottola, had something to do with Michael Jackson getting killed. Like, Tommy Mottola is deep in this stuff. He's constantly getting mentioned alongside these other guys. This is my first time seeing him be mentioned alongside Donald Trump. Now, I don't know in terms of seeking discovery if he's, like, associated with Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that they're using him to seek discovery. Anyways, from Donald Trump and Tommy Mottola and Alan Dershowitz, which forms the basis of his believing that there was probable cause that Bradley Edwards was a knowing participant in the Ponzi scheme. Specifically, Your Honor, the references, I've just been handling the complaint. Okay, I'm going to see what is the last mentioning of Trump in here. Alan Dershowitz. I think we've gone through almost all of them. All the mentions of Trump. In the presence of children. 2 more. Magna Mogul, Alan Dershowitz, professor. Okay. I'm going to continue reading pretty much where I left off. Actually, no, this is not where I left off. I got confused. We're 99 pages out of 134 in. It would have taken me forever to find this. Edwards' office also notified defendant. Actually, I didn't realize how deep we were to begin with. Never mind. So this is like pretty much where I left off. Edwards' office also notified defendant that he intended to take dispositions of and was subpoenaing Donald Trump, real estate magnate and business mogul Alan Dershowitz, noted Harvard law professor, constitutional attorney, and one of Epstein's criminal defense attorneys, Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, Tommy Mottola, president of Sony Records, and David Copperfield, illusionist. Okay. The above-named individuals, paragraph 39, were friends and acquaintances of Epstein with whom he knew. And I'm reading that exactly. With whom he knew through business or philanthropic work over the years. None of the above-named individuals had any connection whatsoever with any of the litigation team's clients, EW, LM, or Jane Doe. Okay, where is Trump mentioned the final time? So there's nothing about this question. Did sexual assault ever take place? I'm sorry. Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump? That should lead to any inference of anything. It's vague, it's overbroad, and has absolutely nothing to do with issues that are presented in the complaint, Your Honor. The court, all right, the last word I will note is this. I'm not only sustaining the objection for the reasons that I have indicated, but also because of the fact that all objections, except for the form, are preserved for the reasons that are outlined by Mr. Link. I am going to sustain those objections, so we are going to move on then. So basically, we're not going to really get an answer there. But there's an implication that, maybe he did something. They had this all brought up in court alongside Tommy Mottola and Alan Dershowitz. Do I have any more? They are talking about Donald Trump becoming president. He's in more links. Talking about gaffes. I don't care. Here's another one. We're gonna be having a list. Okay, this is from Nicholas Ribas to Jeffrey Epstein. Subject is Donald Trump only lasts 2 minutes during sex, says Stormy Daniels. And I believe this is the porn star he was found guilty of soliciting. Not yet. Here with them, and board will shortly. I've heard that some people are like, well, they were trying to make him look bad and, ruin his political career. I make the argument that I don't really care at this point. What's your take? Because so far, we have allegations, we don't have evidence. What?
Yeah, I guess that's ultimately the problem with the whole entire Trump situation is we got a lot of allegations, but we don't got anything definitive, and so it's easier to write it off as Trump derangement syndrome.
I don't know if I would call it that.
Yeah, there is a problem with that because it's not just rumors. Like, we know that he's associated with a lot of bad people, and
there's a lot of smoke.
The company that he keeps the telltale.
Mm-hmm. However, I'm very much. It's like the dingo ate your baby scenario, where people couldn't believe that this woman's baby was eaten by a dingo because there had been no recorded cases up until that point. And so as a result, like, her name got dragged through the mud, and then they came up with this rule, like, even if there's like a 1% chance that the person could be innocent, you have to accept that. You have to accept the 1% chance. And I am not 99.1% certain that Trump did all this stuff. I'm like 99% certain. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is still maybe enough people really do hate him where they created this fabricated story, because I keep having this pop up in the links, because it's part of the link, where it's like Jeffrey Epstein, sex party, age 13, fabricated story. But we know for a fact that Jeffrey Epstein was having sex with minors. We know for a fact that Trump was friends with Epstein. We know for a fact that they were hanging out at parties. And so he would have known Jeffrey Epstein. Based off of that one document, he knew Jeffrey Epstein as early as 1990, at least. Probably well before that. And so I probably could look it up too and see, although whatever I look up, I'm sure is not going to be the correct answer of how long he has actually known Jeffrey Epstein. But right now, what is this one? I want to see this one because this is one of the ones talking about the rape. This is from the Mirror. Okay, I can't trust the Mirror. If I see the Mirror, I know I can't. It can't be reliable. We've been doing this for a hot minute. I wish it still had the ability. I wish it still had the ability to show, to like where I could just put something in brackets and look for the exact wording a certain way, because all it's doing is giving me links. And what's crazy is like it's giving me like a dash in between. Like, I don't know why the dash counts. That's new. Like, it used to be the exact wording, but now there's a dash. It will let you. A dash is allowed to pop up, and I wonder if they deliberately did that so that it would like basically muddy the waters and would show all these results where he is mentioned in links. But it didn't used to do that. I couldn't just simply put a name in. Well, maybe there was a few times. For the most part, I couldn't get that. I didn't really get the links against both Epstein and President Trump. Who is this? This looks like more Twitter stuff. She appears in filings against both Epstein and Donald Trump. Jane Doe instructed us to dismiss her lawsuit against Trump and Epstein today. Tough week for her. We wish her well. We just went on a whole freaking tangent about how Vance says there's nothing in there to make him believe that Trump's guilty. I 100% believe that there is significant documentation to require an inquiry, like to require an investigation. And this is the problem where we have victims that continuously die, because without victims to make a claim and accuse people of stuff, you know, they can't really take them to court. So anyways, let's continue this. Let's continue listening to JD Vance lie blatantly to our faces.
Ever. Yep. So, like, when the president says the hoax, that's what he's talking about, is this democratic idea that he somehow was a pedophile. It's absurd. There's no evidence for it. Now, the Epstein, law gets signed. We find 6 million documents. We find out 3 million of them are actually responsive, have something to do with the Epstein estate. We release all of them, with the exception of the...
Okay, having read through it, I 100% believe this is a lie. 3.5 with the involves the Epstein estate. There are files I've opened. I don't think Epstein's name is mentioned once. I don't think it has anything relevant to do with Epstein. How did they go through all those 3.5 million files? I don't know. But I think what he just said is a lie. I think that they're holding back information. I think that the remaining 2.5 has some pretty interesting stuff.
A few things that are like, the courts have said that we have to redact certain things, or we can't release certain files. But, like, we did release all these files. Did it take longer than it should have taken? Yes. But we did release these files. And again, the problem here is not, like, anything that's in the files or not in the files. The problem is, if you go back to the original investigation, it was designed in a way that was way too narrow. If there was a broader conspiracy, and my view is that there probably was, the evidence that existed in 2007, that was the opportunity to get.
So when you say there probably was a broader conspiracy, what exactly are you saying?
I think there are a few different options. I mean, look, man, I you and I could literally do 2 episodes about this. I've gone down to every rabbit hole.
There he goes, saying he's gone down every rabbit hole and he's fumbling around with his words. I think what he's doing is he's got like these set sentences in the back of his head that he says while he is trying to formulate a better response. You know what I'm saying? Like how he's got the NPC response and he's like, okay, I gotta come up with an original response instead of just giving the NPC response.
There's this funny New York Times story that's somewhat true, somewhat false, but where Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, says, well, we know JD's a conspiracy theorist on this. Like, I am, actually. I've gone down every rabbit hole here. Look, so there's the theory that whether it was American intel or foreign intel, that Epstein was sort of using...
he did not go down. He said it 3 times.
Just by thinking about
he has not gone down every rabbit hole. There's a bunch.
Epstein was using sort of the sex ring to blackmail rich and powerful people. There's that piece of it. I think there's a separate conspiracy that hasn't gotten covered as much, which is that Epstein actually, okay, if you go back
to the point,
the original Epstein guy was Les Wexner, okay, who Columbus, Ohio, was the wealthiest person in Ohio, maybe still is the wealthiest person in the state of Ohio. The thing that everybody in Columbus, I lived there for a time, knew about the Wexner-Epstein relationship is that Epstein was his tax guy. That Epstein was like the genius at identifying weird tax strategies.
This is probably the most honest thing he's said so far.
To pay taxes, but if you were being a little skeptical, would also say that it would allow Epstein.
Although I haven't read like any original documents that
control on rich and powerful people, and so
that clarify it beyond like this could be fake too. Like I don't know what to believe anymore.
Doing a lot of tax stuff that was not on the up and up, and is that one way in which he gained blackmail? It's not opposite of the sexual blackmail story, but in some ways it's.
We don't care about the tax stuff, my dude. We already knew the billionaires weren't paying their taxes.
I also just think there's an element of he was a scumbag, he was a very sick person, he built relationships
There goes
with a lot of other
the
rich and powerful
NPC
people who just didn't have
response.
any real moral judgment about the fact the guy was obviously a scumbag. And again, to go back to defending Donald Trump, I know people don't want to hear this these days, but like, who was the guy?
Also, notice
People say
that
Donald
he
Trump.
typically states an absolute truth before covering it up with lies.
Yeah, he's doing that. He's he's saying stuff that it's definitely like you can verify to be true, or there's an element of truth to it. And he's like, yeah, Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, then that's a good way to go about, like, you know, hiding lies, is to like surround it with a bunch of truths.
You know, by Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy?
Bury it with a lie, throw it in truth, cover it with a lie.
That's in the Epstein files.
Right.
It was Donald Trump.
He also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago in 2005. Well, it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
There he
I
goes,
think we should
saying
have dropped
something
everything
honest.
at the very beginning, and like obviously it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims.
Now
and so
he's
forth, but we
going
should have
off.
just done it as quickly as possible.
Still
but some
saying.
of the stuff that was redacted, some of the names that were redacted weren't victims.
There you go.
So yeah,
This is like the only real pushback you see Joe do. He's like, well, you redacted names that were not the names of victims.
Looked into this, and my understanding of this, having looked at a lot of this but not all of it, is that it is sometimes hard to draw a distinction between victim and co-conspirator.
Okay, I'm calling BS on this. JD Vance is saying, well, that's because sometimes the co-conspirators were the victims. That's not what I was seeing. I was seeing people who were co-conspirators and victims with their names out there. And then I was seeing people who were just victims with their names out there. And then there were people who looked like they were just conspirators with their names redacted.
And like, let me highlight this in a very sort of...
So this is a blatant lie. Like, even the victims will admit to this.
He became very loud on the Epstein files the minute Donald Trump became president. Didn't seem to care about it during the Biden administration. He actually brought one of the Epstein victims, I think, to the State of the Union last year, or maybe it was the year before last. Well, like, that victim, and I'm not saying she wasn't a victim. I don't know anything about her particular case.
Get to the point!
She was also listed as a co-conspirator in some of these documents, right? So there's an idea that some of the people who were engaged in the sex trafficking were also, facilitating it as well.
So they were incentivized to get more girls.
Yeah, but yes, that's right.
But those weren't the names that were redacted. It wasn't people there were victims, who were just victims, and their names were not redacted.
The idea is that it's hard to sort of, it's sometimes a little bit of a gray area between, some of the people who were alleged victims were also alleged co-conspirators, and so what DOJ tried to do was kind of make that judgment as best they could and release as much as possible.
But it's clear that he was trying to get in contact with people that he felt were influential. It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties. So there was something he was doing where he was trying to either influence people or compromise people.
Correct.
So it's not, there's some sort of an operation that was going on.
There is a story there, and, I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on and how.
So he was also trying to get scientists, and this is one of the reasons supposedly
100%.
why he got that ranch in New Mexico.
So a friend of mine has this element of, just step back, conspiracy theories. One of the ways you discredit a conspiracy theory, I've thought about this a lot, is to try to hide it. Another way you discredit a conspiracy theory is by flooding the zone. So one of the things I've tried to do when looking at all this stuff is to try to understand sort of where it fits in. And
I feel like they've tried to do both. I think first they tried to hide it, and that's why they didn't release the files after they got elected, and they only did it under pressure, and it was only through Congress. And now it's kind of like being flooded with all these duplicate documents, among documents that have absolutely nothing to do with the trafficking.
And try to separate the real from the fake. But one really interesting element of the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga, okay, so he dies in 2019, right? This is at the very end of the first Trump administration. His death coincides very, very closely. This is not my observation, this is a friend, but I don't want to reveal confidences here. It coincides very closely with the end of what you might call the era of censorship in academia. So back in 2019, 2020, we reached sort of academic censorship.
Since I was actually in college during this time, I actually can testify that this is kind of true.
Racial undertones, or people were getting fired from academia for not doing land acknowledgments, stuff like that. Okay, I'm not saying that stuff has completely gone away, but Epstein, we know, was funding a ton of scientists. By the way, where did his money come from? He was funding a ton of scientists, but like when he died.
This is one of those things that he's saying that does have a good chunk of truth to it. Like, it's one of the more truthful things he's saying.
Plugged into the social media companies. Like, this dude knew everybody. He knew everybody. So, look,
where did his money come from?
Well, from given part of it is suspect tax advice and setting up tax schemes for a lot of very, very rich people.
Yeah, that's another thing. No one knows where he got his money from. He's supposed to be this multi-billionaire.
And what was the purpose?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I have theories. There's of course the...
Well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country. Or both. Look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within...
He seems super nervous as he's talking. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I can hear it in his voice reflections.
Because compared to like the UFC talking and talking about aliens, which he does after the Epstein stuff, and talking about the Strait of Hormuz, this is like the only time where he's really struggling to get his words together. It's like the only time he's stuttering, and he's really like jumping around the subject.
The Israeli government, who don't like our peace
Someone
process.
told him what to say.
The Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign...
He's doing an okay job of trying to hide it, but he's not doing a good enough job where it can't be noticed.
As much as I know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across the board. Like, he had Republican friends, he had Democratic friends, he had much deeper...
Notice how he is now contradicting what we just listened to Donald Trump say earlier, where Donald Trump was saying, oh, it was all the Democrats. I can't do it good. It was all the Democrats. I try to do a Donald Trump impression, I can't do it. It's all the Democrats, okay? It was just Democrats. She was only friends with the Democrats. There were no Republicans. We need to be happy with...
I had nothing to do with children.
Yeah, so here's JD Vance directly contradicting what Donald Trump said a few months ago, and we just listened to that video. JD Vance is now saying he knew Republicans and Democrats, whereas Trump said no, it was just Democrats.
Connections to the
So
Israeli left
he either slipped.
I don't know what that means.
He was hanging out with Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky.
Or some, I don't.
He had, again,
Or Trump was not that informed, or they're playing dumb.
The political spectrum in a way he didn't necessarily have in Israel.
I had one of my guests try to get me to meet him.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
2017.
See, that's crazy to me. Because at that point, he'd already gone down for at least one, sex abuse thing.
That was my position.
Okay, they're going to start tapering off here in just a second. I want to look this up, too. Rogan asked to meet Epstein. Yes. That's the AI. I want to see if I can find it. Is this the one where he talks about it?
It seems very dark.
Very
Because
dark.
it seems like it was this bizarre blackmail influence thing that was going on for a long
For so long.
time.
Through different administrations. That's what's so
Yeah.
unbelievable about it. How long it was going on.
I'm in
How
the
many
files for
people.
not going.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm in the files for not going. Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
No thanks.
Yeah.
Aren't you
I was like,
glad?
Yeah, but I would have never went anyway. It's like, it's not even a possibility that I would have went.
But you
Especially after I Googled them. I was like, what the f*** are you talking about? This is like 2017. One of my guests was trying to get me to meet him. I was like, are you high? Like, what the f*** are you talking about?
For what reason would you? What would be?
If I was a guy who was like sucking up to the rich and powerful, if I was really interested in hanging out with rich and powerful people, it seemed very...
Okay. I'm going to give the AI overview because I'm looking for original documents or whatever to see what's going on. Oh! This one is an email released by the Justice Department as part of the Epstein files, shows a former guest of Joe Rogan. I wonder if I can actually find it myself in the Epstein files. But according to the AI overview, Jeffrey Epstein asked to meet with Joe Rogan in 2017. Epstein contacted theoretical physicist Lawrence Krauss, who had been a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience and had asked for an introduction because he thought Rogan was funny. Rogan revealed his name is in the Epstein files because of this interaction. However, Rogan has stated he never met or communicated with Epstein. When the introduction was proposed to him years ago, Rogan recalled his immediate response to the physicist was, "Bitch, are you high?" And he shot the idea down. So I'm going to look it up right now. Joe Rogan pops up less than a full page worth, meaning he's got less than 10 results. Director Patel is recording a Joe Rogan podcast, breaks down the exciting co-main. This is a Joe Rogan, therefore she's wearing a push, whatever. Joe Rogan criticized Director Patel. This is a Joe Rogan, she's wearing a push. I think it's supposed to be push-up bra. Yeah, it is. Okay, there she's wearing a push-up bra and a skirt as wide as I don't care. This is Joe Rogan. This has nothing to do with that. Yeah, I don't think Rogan... yeah. I don't think he's in there for that. I don't think it says anything about that.
No, because I think at the time he wouldn't have been too important because, let's see, at the height of, well, maybe not the height, but, you know, what would it be? If it was, say, around the 70s, 80s, 90s, that's around, well, actually, really just 80s and 90s. That's when Joe Rogan was I think it was a judo fighter.
Well, he was saying it was in 2017 that they reached out to him.
In 2017?
Yeah, and he said that the email's out there, but it's not. I can't find it. I don't think it's in here. Yeah, I don't think it's. So either they took it down, or it doesn't matter. I don't know what to make of this. This could be a fake.
My conspiracy theorist mind is, what if the reason why Joe Rogan is so quiet anytime when he interviews somebody associated with the Trump administration is just because if he is less boisterous, they'll redact more of his files in the Epstein case.
Repeat what you just said. I was reading something.
Basically, the former Joe Rogan interviews the Trump administration and is calm about it. The more of his emails with Epstein get redacted.
So you're thinking he actually is in there and that Joe Rogan wants the results redacted?
Yeah. So all he has to do is just play nice with whoever Trump sends his way.
So I'm not gonna save any of the Joe Rogan documents. I'm not gonna put them in the description. Well, because there's nothing there to really be noteworthy. I will link the Donald Trump ones. Actually, maybe I will, just to say, look, here are the Joe Rogan documents, but there's really nothing there that's noteworthy based off of what I was seeing. Here's what I'm reading on IMDb. Joe Rogan said on his podcast Tuesday that he thought that though his name is in the Epstein files, it meant nothing. Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me, Rogan told Cheryl Hines, as seen in the clip via the Daily Beast. I was like, what? A search of the Epstein files shows that in 2017, Epstein emailed physicist Lawrence Krauss. I saw you did the Joe Rogan show. Can you introduce me? I think he was funny. Epstein, a sex offender who trafficked underage girls, died by suicide. Okay, so I just looked up that phrase I saw on the Joe Rogan show, blah, blah, blah. That did not pop up in the Epstein files at all. Not even fractions of that. So, however, Lawrence Krauss, he does pop up quite a bit. So, maybe if I just put in Rogan's show. Maybe just Rogan. Maybe they spelled it incorrectly. Yeah, so if what he is saying is correct, Rogan's show should have popped it up. Based off of how I know how this freaking Jeffrey Epstein search engine works, they should have popped up. So I wonder if this... so here's my theory about what happened. My theory is this whole thing is fake, but it was not done by Joe. My theory is it was done by a fan. It made its way around social media. Joe Rogan sees it. He's like, oh, cool, I didn't realize that. And then it becomes mainstream. Or Joe Rogan talked about, but then it's like, well, who would have known about that where they make this fake Epstein file? The point is like, this is not a real Epstein file. If it was taken out. This whole thing is suspicious. And I don't like it. But we got to keep going because we've been just doing this for ages now. And I want to wrap up this whole Epstein section and then go a little bit further in.
I'll show you the emails. Okay. They're kind of funny. I actually read them on stage.
Please
people can
show
find
us.
It. Yeah.
I can't find it.
The guy's already ruined. Sure. But I googled it and I'm like, what the fuck?
Let me try one more time. Rogan asked me Epstein original email. I wonder if I can get the original email. Overture from theoretical physicists. I can't find the original email. It's not in here. I'm opening up X. I still cannot find the original email. There is no original emails asking Joe Rogan. So best case scenario, Joe sees a fake report. and then he's circulating this misinformation around. Worst case scenario, it's what you're saying is true, where Epstein actually did have Rogan over, Rogan's trying to get his butt covered. I cannot find the original email. Joe's saying you can find the original email. I cannot find the original email. So now Joe might be lying. Now Joe might be bold-faced lying.
What are you talking about? See, but this goes back to my original point,
This is part of what he was doing, right? He wanted to get influential people.
But you go back to the original 2007 warrant on Jeffrey Epstein. All of the really crazy shit happened from the 90s to 2007. That's when he was at the peak of his
did
power.
more afterwards.
He hadn't yet gone down on a sex abuse scandal.
He did more sex abuse stuff afterwards. And JD Vance is trying to... I can see where he's going with this, because he already said that all that stuff before the first arrest and first conviction was basically erased, which isn't true. And I think what he's trying to say now is, we don't have any documentation of actual abuse.
To your point, right?
Which I don't believe.
Even if you have some scumbags who were willing to introduce him to Joe Rogan in 2017, there are a lot of Joe Rogans, or at least some, who are going to say, wait a second, I'm going to Google this guy and find out that he's a predator. A lot did.
That was really crazy.
A lot did, but some did. And my point is, that would limit his influence. But if you go back to the 1990s, the early 2000s, that is the stuff. I think that is the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era. And
I think he's lying.
No producer,
I think he's bold-faced lying.
No tech skills, just Riverside.
I think so too.
And it was destroyed. I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
Especially since you'd hit the other way around, you know?
Hey, let me go back just a few seconds. So,
1990s, the early 2000s.
Listen closely.
That is the stuff. I think that is the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era, and it was destroyed. I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
See, now whatever existed would not have even been caught up, and he just leaves it at that. He's trying to get it to drop. He's like, there's nothing else we can do. That's basically what he's saying. There's nothing else we can do, and now he's just ending it on that, hoping that Joe's going to drop the subject, and now Joe's going to pivot.
Right, so they were specifically going after him for underage sex, and they didn't look at the full...
I know he pivots in a second.
They didn't even try to.
Well, that was one of the things about the prosecutor was told that he was above their pay grade. I mean, it was one of the things that he said.
It was like CIA or something,
yeah,
right?
He said, I was told he was intelligent.
Right. And yes, I've asked, were there documents connecting Jeffrey Epstein directly to our intelligence agencies or anybody else's? And the answer is no, but...
I don't think that's true. Now, I haven't read too much about the CIA while going through the Epstein files, but I don't think that's true either. I don't think what he just said is true.
If that shit existed, it wouldn't exist in 2026.
What is it like being the vice president? How much...
See, now here he is. Now Joe just did a total pivot. This is what I'm talking about. So JD Vance is just ending... He's finishing... He's answering questions and just leaving it there. He's not going too far into detail. And I think Joe subtly picked up on this, and now he's asking them, what is it like being the vice president? This is a pivot. This is not even a very subtle pivot. But it's a non-Epstein related question, because notice how JD Vance is just stopping. He's not elaborating. He's not trying to give answers that will reveal anything we don't know. So I think this is him trying to signal to Joe, pivot. I think they had a discussion beforehand. And now that I think this is a very structured interview. This is what I was telling you earlier. That it's not about pivoting with the aliens. I think that Joe's the one who who pivots, and I think this is the point where he is asking JD Vance, what is it like being the vice president?
Access do you have to information? Because
I'll give you another conspiracy. So I have like effectively unlimited access to information.
He's saying that he has effectively unlimited access to information. So when he's saying stuff like he doesn't know, I'm trying to remember, did he say he didn't know? I do know that, like, I was trying to make a point earlier where I'm like, okay, he has access to the 6 million files, and he said that he's been through the majority of the files. And I was being generous, just giving him a fraction of the 3.5.
He really contradicts himself, because I do remember as part of the interview, he does go on to say that he hasn't taken the time because he's been busy with Hormuz and, whatever else in current day events, that he hasn't done all the digging, though he does have information at his fingertips.
But here he is also saying that he's gone through most of them. They both can't be true. You can't be so busy with the Strait of Hormuz.
That's for sure.
Yeah, you can't be saying you've been so busy with the Strait of Hormuz you haven't been able to get around to the Epstein files while simultaneously saying you've been through most of the files, whilst having unlimited access to them.
Yeah, now, but of course, to the point where looking through the files was his job, but at the same time, I don't know how honest he is about, being about what, because this is a massive cover-up, no matter how you cut it.
No, it doesn't
matter.
Yeah, it's a massive cover-up.
You have looked through it, because anybody can say that. It's about how much of it can you actually share, which that is something that Rogan failed to ask him, and we would be obliged to be honest to that question.
By the way, they talked about the Epstein files for a grand total of like 17 minutes. Like, they're going to touch on it a little bit more, but they're pretty much done at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
This was structured.
And tax stuff, and I think they, like, granted, I didn't watch the very end, but I would be.
There's not much at the end.
About Vance running for president in the future.
There was also some talk on religion, but it wasn't anything particularly meaningful. So I'm going to continue because there was a little bit more that he.
All kind of. It was baby stuff, like.
Yeah.
Demons.
It tapers off.
I don't think that one matters. Like.
It's definitely one of those things where they're talking about just for the sake of having something interesting to talk about, not the important stuff. If you compare like the actual politically significant stuff that they were talking about here, compared to the non-politically significant stuff and like all the speculation that they do between each other, they are not really talking about anything important. Like the vast majority of this interview is all fluff.
One of the things that I've learned about the job is you're doing so much on the day-to-day. Like you're calling senators and trying to get them to pass a piece of legislation. You're meeting with staff about what should go in the housing bill. You're negotiating with the Iranians or the Qataris or the Israelis about something that's going on in the Middle East. And a lot of it, like the UFO thing, like I've said that I'm going to look in the UFO.
See, now here he is pivoting the UFOs.
And I've been saying that for a year and a half.
Although Joe pivots first, and now he's going further into that pivot.
And so some of this is like, you just have to have the time to actually punch through the walls and to like go to the gatekeepers and say you have to open up that gate because I'm the vice president. And some of it is just hard to actually get to because I don't have the time to sort of focus on that one issue for any particular period of time. So the answer is you have unlimited access to information. The constraint is not people tell me no. The constraint is you're just so busy doing other shit.
The UFO thing, I think, would be something that I would want to pursue.
Yes.
I mean, just for my own personal information, I would want to know what is going on.
Correct.
So the question is, are these special access programs that are above top secret and that this is our own stuff, or is this something that's far more bizarre and something that is interdimensional from another planet, whatever, right, fill in the blank.
Yeah, is it foreign? And if it's foreign, is it 6,000 miles away or like 6,000 light years away?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And that is, I will answer that question eventually.
Really?
Yes. I'll get to the bottom of it.
How how are you going to have the
more
time to do
invested
that?
in aliens than he is in
Eventually we'll have,
children
like,
being
sit down
trafficked.
and worry about that problem.
You said something that
This guy just continuously infuriates me.
That is one of those conspiracy theories that there are a lot of people in our government who are interested in this, meaning our current political leadership who are interested in
So
this.
here's my theory of why he's doing this. Because I was like, this was so bad. This makes him look so freaking bad, this whole interview. I think he's banking on boomers. I think he's hoping that he gets that the boomers are going to last long enough to vote him in for presidency. Because the best that right now the Democrats got to run in 2028 is Gavin Newsom, and anyone who knows anything about how he's been able to take care of California as long as he's been governor, they're not going to want to vote for him. So JD Vance, I think, is just trying to stay relevant by going on to Joe Rogan, and this is him like trying to start creating a platform for him to launch his own presidency.
I don't think he can even appeal to the boomers. I think he gets Generation X on lock.
You think it's Generation X that he appeals to? I don't see Generation X liking him as much.
Generation X is just kind of 50-50. I know that they lean more conservative these days, but I know that there's probably a lot of diehard Democrats on that side. But I feel like they're more, like, just from my understanding of how their ideology, I don't know if that's that word right, but, you know, they're definitely libertarian at best.
So right now,
screw the man, but if you promise less taxes, they'll be eating out of your hand.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Gen X is like 50s and 40s. Boomers are like 60s and 70s. If you look at the people from the 60 to 64 demographic, outside of like people in their early 20s and late 30s, this is like one of the biggest demographics we have. I'm looking at a population pyramid right now. The boomers make up approximately 21 million people in the United States. First off, the reason why we have so many people in the 20 to 35 range, 20 to 39-year-old range, is because of immigration. And so a lot of these people cannot vote. And then there is the fact that boomers are more likely to vote. As people get older, they're more likely to vote. And so I think that what JD Vance is trying to do is he's trying to figure out a way to stay relevant in the public eye, have a few good clips come out of this, have the boomers get them on their computers or whatnot, see it, and then, applaud him, and be like, yes, that's our guy, the vice president of Trump. Because the boomers, I think, I don't know too many demographics outside of boomers that are really upholding Trump. Maybe some of Gen X, but Gen X as a group you don't hear that much from Gen X because they're a lot smaller than the boomers in terms of a demographic. And so I think that what JD Vance is trying to do with this podcast is he is trying to appeal to the lowest demographic, the lowest IQ individuals who are not really paying attention. They see him on Joe Rogan, they think he's cool, and then they're going to vote for him. I think that's what he's trying to do. I don't think that's going to work as well as he thinks it is. He thinks it's going to work. I think what's going to save him is if I think whoever is I think the main topic that they're going to have when it's time for the election is who is in the Epstein files and what did you do. I think that's going to be a big one. And I think JD Vance will eventually end up stabbing Trump in the back. I think he will, because I am now convinced that he is power hungry for the presidency, and that's one of the reasons why he keeps coming on Joe Rogan. So I'm going to look up JD Vance really quick, because I can't remember if he's in here or not. I think I've seen him. He's only got 18. He's only got 18 documents in the Epstein files. And now that doesn't mean that there could be something, there may not be something alarming in here, but it is a lot more telling. It is very telling that he has only 1% of the files that Trump has. It's very telling. So, I don't see anything. It looks like these are all news articles. I don't think it's anything meaningful about JD Vance. I'm not seeing anything that gives alarm bells off other than news articles. It's not like he's communicating directly with Jeffrey Epstein or anything like that. I'm curious about Gavin Newsom, because I don't know if he's in here. Am I spelling his name correctly? Okay, I'm spelling his name incorrectly. That's why it's not popping up. Because I think he's in here. Yeah, so Gavin Newsom has 47 results, which is 3 times the amount. So he's got a slightly worse look than JD Vance, but they're still relatively clean. It's still a relatively clean look, and it's probably just all news articles by the looks of it. So I think they're going to run Newsom against JD Vance. I have absolutely no idea who's going to win, and right now, this is kind of like, right now, JD Vance on this podcast is looking the same way Newsom did when he said that he scored in the bottom 10% of his SAT or whatever. Remember when he came out and said that, or he said that he struggles to read? He's basically, he's saying how bad he is in any form of academia. Do you remember when he came out and said all that stuff?
No.
He said it very recently. This is not very important, so in relative to the Epstein files, I just think that this is, they're trying really hard to appeal. Hey, this is post-editing Rebecca, and I'm really sorry about the abrupt cutoff, but what ended up happening is that turns out there is a 2-hour mark for the platform I'm using to record. I thought I didn't have that because I did pay for a service. It used to have a minimum of 30 minutes of recording. Now I guess it's 2 hours for some weird reason. Maybe it doesn't have the capacity to do that. Still working on the kinks of doing all this, but yeah, me and Aiden went on to talk a little bit more about the potential presidency of, or should I say, presidential election of Newsom versus JD Vance, and we talked a little bit more about how frustrated we are with everything, and we kind of speculated about what's going on. We didn't get too much further into any more new interesting information. We'll probably go ahead and make another video anyways when it comes to JD Vance and Joe Rogan pivoting to aliens. Because something that I do say towards the end is this is 17 minutes of a nearly 180-minute long interview. So less than 10% of this interview was dedicated to the greatest sex scandal of our lifetime. And I was very disappointed in that. The greatest political sex scandal of our lifetime. And it's about trafficking children, and they did not dedicate nearly enough time to that, and it was so obvious. If you watch the whole interview, it's so obvious that JD Vance is just pivoting. And then I also read the comments in the underneath the YouTube video. Very telling about what the public opinion is, and I agreed with pretty much all the ones I was reading. Anyways, I will probably do another video of Aiden on this very soon here. Sorry about the cutoff. Did not realize that's something my platform did, and I'm going to be working on doing better. As you can see, my hair is a mess, and, you know, such is life. Life is a bit of a mess. But I wanted to get this done eventually, and I didn't have time to do it sooner. I initially did not want to do this. I initially did not want to listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, but then I saw what was going on online. I was starting to hear some of the stuff that was going on, and I was like, oh my goodness, JD Vance had the opportunity to clear up some stuff, and he just made himself look worse. He just made the whole entire Trump administration look worse, so that's why I did it.